The time is approximately 5:00 p.m. on October 29, 2014, and we'll call to order the meeting of the Carson City Planning Commission. Ms. King, may we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Wendell.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Eswine.
Here.
Commissioner Castro.
Here.
Commissioner Dami. Commissioner Owens.
Here.
Commissioner Sattler.
Here.
Commissioner Steele.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Steele, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Planning Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there any member of the public that wishes to approach the podium and address any particular issue at this time? Yes, sir. Would you please identify yourself for the record at the podium?
Yes, my name's Greg Stevenson, and
Are you addressing an item on the agenda, sir?
Yes.
It has to be an item not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, sir. Thank you. You have a set of the minutes for the period of September 24, 2014. If you've had an opportunity to review those minutes, may I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll make a motion for accept the minutes as written.
A motion made to approve the minutes as prepared. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Eswin. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Mr. Klemmel, is there any modification of the agenda?
No recommended modifications for staff. Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Would any member of the commission wish to explain any contact with an applicant or the public regarding any item on the agenda or business of the commission at this time? Let it be noted on the record that there is no commission member expressing the desire for any disclosures. First item on the agenda of public hearing matters. F-1 SUP-14-079 for possible action to consider a request from the Carson City Public Works property owner, Carson City, to allow an animal service facility on property zoned public regional located at 549 Airport Road, APN 010-031-04. Ms. Bansky.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be giving this presentation. For the record, Kathy Green in our office wrote the staff report that you have and the information you have before you. I'll be presenting the information to you this evening. As you mentioned, this is a special use permit to allow the construction and operation of a new animal services facility it requires a special use permit because it's a public facility in the public zoning district, and all the uses as well as the setbacks and height are established through the special use permit process. More specifically for this application, the subject animal facility this is the animal facility that has been discussed as part of the 2014 8-cent sales tax expenditure plan, part of a number of projects around the city, but this is being constructed with those funds, and it's going to be located at the city corporate yard, which is right off Airport Road and in the Budeye Way vicinity as shown on the map. The animal facility, as noted in your maps, will be located in this portion, kind of the southwest portion of the northern half of the city property that's out there, right in this vicinity. The current animal shelter is located in the far northeast portion of city property over here by Fairview Drive. So it's still in the same location. Same vicinity, same city property, but it's being moved away from the residence. So where it's about 200 feet from the current residence now, it's going to be about 1,000 feet from the residence at its proposed location. The proposed animal facility is going to be approximately 11,000 square feet in size. It's designed to accommodate up to about approximately 134 dogs, 1,004 cats, and 7 exotic animals. And let me just go through a little bit more on the location. Again, this just shows the site plan and the proposed facility in the context of the other facilities that are out there currently at the corporate yard. Presently, this area is just a storage area. It's an open area, as you could see in the aerial photo in these photos. And this is kind of from Airport Road, so this is going to be the location of it as viewing it from Airport Road. I'll go through these really quick, fairly quick as well. We have, the site plan, some floor plan drawings and elevations. Rob Fellows is here from the City Public Works Department, who's the project manager, and will be available. He's the applicant here representing the applicant, will be available to ask specific questions. So you can refer back to these maps and graphics if you have any more specific questions about the facility. But the entry will be off Airport Road with the parking on that side in the front of the building facing that airport. So that's kind of the public side of the building. The dog runs will be on the back side inside the corporate yard side of the building. As I said, we have a floor plan that you can hopefully see a little bit more detail in your package, but with the areas for the dogs and cats and the various types of rooms labeled. And then some elevation drawings as to what the facility is proposed to look like. We sent out the planning division sent out notices to a total of 39 adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject site pursuant to the requirements of the Carson City Municipal Code and NRS. And as of today, we have not received any comments either for or against from surrounding property owners or any other members of the public regarding this special use permit. So again, this is the next step in the process, special use permit to construct this facility. It requires this, and then maybe Rob can give you a little update on the project schedule, where we go from this point.
All right, sir, thank you. Mr. Fellows, I understand you. You're representing the applicant in this matter?
Yes, I'm the project manager for this project.
All right, sir. Did you hear the statement provided by Mr. Plemmel?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the special conditions
I am.
regarding?
Yes, I am.
Do you agree with those conditions,
yes, I do.
sir? All right, thank you. Would you wish to add anything further to what Mr. Plemmel has addressed?
Just that it's not 1,040 cats, it's just 104 cats. That's all.
That's quite a difference. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. I'm here to answer any questions that you'd have. The schedule, we're going to get our architect back on board in December, going to the Board of Commissioners to get him going on the final design, working with Cassie and the Humane Society. His contract's going to start in hopefully January, and design will be completed in a few months in the spring, and then we'll go to bid and start construction in July. We've allocated a year's time to construct the facility. So it'll be from July and finished the following June and opened in July that following year. So that's the plan.
All right, sir. Any commission members have any questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Esper.
My question is, it's not really a question, it's an observation and a comment. And I hope that you are going to remove the slatted fence along the road so that we have a $4 million building that's not hiding behind a fairly ugly fence.
Exactly, yeah. It's all going to be open to the road, and so it'll look very nice. There will be an area that will be fenced for trailers and staff parking in the back.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Mr. Sadler.
Under other department comments, it mentioned from the fire department, the adequate turning radius, et cetera, has that been addressed or answered? Or?
Yeah, we're probably going to end up losing a couple spaces in that turnaround area, but we're going to accommodate that in the gate to the main corporation yard. We're going to put that in where they can use it effectively. So, no problem.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Mr. Fellows? Mr. Castro?
Not necessarily a question, just maybe a thought, thinking outside the box. You offered 50 parking spaces,
Yes.
and it requires 44. Maybe just in your final, when you guys are striping, of making 44 bigger parking spaces because you're dealing with animals and car doors, and just kind of an out-of-the-box thought.
Good thought.
Okay.
Yeah, we often use, instead of the 9-foot standard, a 10-foot space to get that extra room. Good thought.
Any other commissioners? Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Fellows.
You're welcome.
We'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Any comments?
I'm excited to see it built.
All right, I'm prepared to receive them.
Public.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Any member of the public wish to address this particular application? Let it be noted on the record that there's no one from the public that has indicated any interest in addressing this particular application. Bringing it back to the commission, Mr. Sadler.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve SUP-14-079, a special use permit to allow the construction and operation of an animal service facility on property in the public regional zoning district located at 549 Airport Road, APN 010-031-04, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
We have a motion made that was for approval by Mr. Sadler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Eswin. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any nays? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda, F-2, SUP-14-080. For possible action, to consider request from WSCC Incorporated, property owner Grace Note Real Estate LLC, to allow a medical marijuana cultivation facility on property zoned general industrial located at 3493 Arrowhead Drive, APN 005-052-03. Ms. Pansky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Susan Dorpansky, Planning Manager. A couple things that I want to address before I get into my main body of my presentation. First of all, on this item specifically, I have 2 items of late information that have been provided to you. One is a memo from me that corrects a couple of places in the staff report that were brought to my attention by Vice Chair Eswine, where I had referred to the facility as a dispensary when I should have referred to it as a cultivation facility, so I apologize for that. 2 of the places where I did that are in conditions of approval, so we will need to modify those conditions in the motion. When we get to that point, conditions number 18 and number 21. The second piece of late information is an email received by Mr. Greg Stevenson. I had memorialized a conversation I had with him briefly in the staff report, but he has also provided some comments for the record in writing, and he is also present today to speak during public comment. So those are the item-specific pieces that I wanted to address. In general, on medical marijuana facilities and what we're here to do today, I'm just going to give you an overview of where we've been and where we are now and what it is that you are here today to do as the Planning Commission as it relates to these 4 applications that are in front of you. Back in 2013, the state of Nevada passed the Medical Marijuana Act, legalizing medical marijuana in the state of Nevada, and through that process, the local jurisdictions have either opted in or opted out on allowing medical marijuana. Carson City had chosen to opt in. You may recall a few months ago, we brought forth some zoning regulations for you to look at, and you forwarded recommendations on to the Board of Supervisors, who then made what they felt were the appropriate changes and then adopted them. We also have recently adopted a business license ordinance related to medical marijuana in anticipation of the state licenses, the provisional licenses being issued next week. So part of our process here in Carson City will be to require a special use permit for any medical marijuana facility. Now, I'd like for you to remember that Carson City is only allotted 2 dispensaries total. Today, you have a request for 3 dispensaries on the agenda. Basically, how this process works is these applicants that are here today, they have submitted their applications to the state. They're awaiting whether or not they get provisional approval or not. If they get a provisional certificate, they'll be able to move forward. They have chosen, in this case, to have the process with us go simultaneously. So what that means is that in each application staff report that you have in front of you, there's a condition of approval that says you must have your provisional certificate in place for this special use permit to be valid. If it isn't in place, the special use permit is null and void. So what you'll be looking at as the Planning Commission today is each individual location and whether a special use permit is appropriate for that location, given the development standards that we've set forth in the code and the standard special use permit findings that you're supposed to meet. If you approve all 3, that's okay. This is for dispensaries specifically. If you approve all 3, that's okay. Know that 2 of those 3 may get provisionals, or maybe none of them will, because there are several other applicants that are not before you yet. So just keep that in mind. The decision isn't whether or not marijuana is allowed in the city, it's whether or not these applications in these locations are appropriate.
Question.
Now, yes.
I'm a little confused, but, sorry. I thought the 4 applications are for cultivation facilities, not dispensaries. So
Only-
can we go into definition with dispensary being to the public, cultivation facility not being for the public, only a place where it's cultivated?
So the first application that we're getting ready to hear right now is for cultivation. The
Okay.
other 3 applications are for dispensaries.
Are for dispensary?
Yes.
Okay, that's my
So
mistake.
and as it relates to the cultivation facility, there is no limit on cultivation facilities in Carson City, which means that this applicant could very well receive a provisional certificate and move forward to the next stage. Again, it's your job as the commission to determine if the location is appropriate based on the development standards that we've set forth. So any other questions about the process? Okay. Got that? So that's the only time I'm going to say that. Unless you have questions, I'm not going to repeat it for every application we do tonight for the benefit of everyone. Okay, so this is a request for a cultivation facility at the property located at 3493 Arrowhead Drive. The owner is Grace Note Real Estate, the applicant WSCC Inc., and it is located in a general industrial area that is allocated as appropriate for medical marijuana cultivation facilities. This is an aerial of the location. It's, as you can see, on Arrowhead Drive, right at the curve as it turns to the west. In the lower left, this is kind of the start of the airport here. And then over here, you'll see the gun range and then the beginnings of the Eagle Valley Golf Course. These are a couple of photos of the existing facility today. And then an aerial of the cultivation building with parking shown. Now, one of the things I'd like to note for the record is that the parking spaces right now, and you can kind of see in this drawing, they're kind of drawn in. They're pretty vague on the pavement right now, so there is a recommended condition for them to restripe, so it's very clear where the parking is. So this applicant is proposing the medical marijuana cultivation facility in this existing 10,150 square foot building. A cultivation facility is intended to grow medical marijuana only for distribution to medical marijuana dispensaries, and they have the ability to distribute to any dispensary within the state of Nevada. They cannot distribute across state lines, but they can distribute across county lines. This facility consists of 12 grow rooms, which you can see on the screen, and a work area, break room, office area, security area, storage, and restrooms. The applicant has stated that 5 to 10 employees will work at the facility at any given time, and they anticipate about 1 truckload of exported material from the facility each week. So the level of traffic is relatively low for this facility. A couple things specifically that have come up. They intend to use about a little over 1,000 gallons a day in water, which from engineering standpoint is relatively low. It doesn't trigger growth management or anything like that. They have proposed a security plan. It includes security cameras inside and outside the building. And they've proposed security metal grills mounted over the doors and the windows. Now, I have not required them to provide extensive security, and this is the case in all 4 applications, extensive security plans, because I don't want those to be made public so that they can maintain the security to the best of their ability. So in general, the staff has found that the security they propose is acceptable, and should the state find that it's acceptable as well, then that's good enough for us. There have been some concerns given the level of product that will be grown at this facility about odor coming out of the facility. And I know in locations in California and possibly Colorado that has been a concern. But first of all, the state application and regulations requires that medical marijuana cultivation facilities ensure that they don't have any kind of smell that can be smelled from any of the neighboring properties. If they do, they're in violation of their state permit. And we have further stipulated in a recommended condition that that they would need to maintain that level. So if for some reason they were in violation, they would be in violation not only of the state permit, but also of the special use permit for the odor. Since this is kind of a new process for Carson City, what I'd like to do is briefly go through all of the medical marijuana standards that we have just recently adopted, so everyone's clear on what we're kind of looking at. And before I do that, I'm just going to quickly show you a typical grow flowering room, if you will. This is basically the floor plan. What it shows it has ductwork and various fans and things that would accommodate the grow in the inside of the building. So in our medical marijuana standards, we have some that are applicable to all medical marijuana establishments, and then some that are only applicable to dispensaries. And those are noted separately throughout. But the first is that a special use permit's required, and that's what they're here for today. It's only valid at a given location for the operator that has the certificate. If that expires, or the operator loses it or forfeits it, then the special use permit would also forfeit, and it's not transferable to another site. So if this operator chooses to move, they would have to do a new special use permit in the new location. And we have a condition of approval that we've recommended for that. No consumption of medical marijuana products shall occur on the premises. We've recommended a condition for that. All business activities shall be conducted indoors within a permanent building. They will, as you can see from the staff report and the presentation, they will be, everything will be operated indoors. Outside display or sales of merchandise is prohibited. In a cultivation facility, this product is not available for sale to the public, but there is a recommended condition of approval that we've placed on it that no outside display or sales occur regardless, although we don't anticipate that it would. They do have the ability to do outside storage as an accessory, and they would need to meet the standard requirements for that. They are not proposing any at this time. If they were to do that, they would just need to meet those requirements. Access shall be restricted in compliance with state regulations. We've put a condition of approval for that. No MME-related products shall be visible from outside the building. Again, this is cultivation. It's unlikely that any products would be visible, but we've placed a condition regardless. Sign requirements. Now, the applicant and you'll see that this is the case in all of the applications you hear tonight. The applicant has not proposed signage at this time. They have indicated to me that it's their desire to be as inconspicuous as possible, so I wouldn't anticipate a large sign with a or a marijuana plant on it in any case. But they will need to come in front of the planning division. They don't need to come back to the commission, but they'll need to talk with staff about those requirements when they get ready to do their signage. Parking, 1 space per 1,000 feet. Based on that requirement, they would need 11 spaces. They have 18, so they are over the minimum requirement. They shall not be located within 1,000 feet of a school, 300 feet of a daycare, public facility, which includes daycare, public park, playground, public pool, center, facility for recreational or services to children. And during the initial processes of their state application, staff had verified that this facility does meet those requirements. And staff has attached the zoning letter that we provided to them at that time for reference. Everything under number 2 applies only to medical marijuana dispensaries, single point of entry, hours of operation, drive-through service. Dispensaries shall not be located within 300 feet of residential property on the same street. None of that is applicable to this standard, this facility. And then additional special use permit requirements that the proposed, these are all dispensary as well, but I'll note them. The dispensary is located where sufficient, convenient, and safe access is provided, not applicable. That the proposed location has adequate lighting and street improvements, also not applicable. So staff is recommending approval, but I will note that we have received a couple of comments from members of the public related to this, 2 of which are very specifically opposed to this use at this location. One that is not opposed, provided that his concerns are addressed specifically. One is Mr. Greg DeLarge, and I have outlined his specific comments and provided them as an attachment in the staff report. Another is Mr. Stevenson. I had mentioned previously that I had outlined our discussion. He has provided written information and will also speak tonight, I believe, as well. And then Mr. Steve Kress. He expressed concerns about traffic, odor, and available power in the vicinity, but indicated that if those were not issues and could be easily addressed, he did not have any concerns. Again, as I stated, we're recommending approval. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will note the applicant and the applicant's representative are present. They have their own presentation they'd like to do as well, but before I turn it over to them, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions of Ms. Vansky at this time? Mr. Steele.
Yes, Susan, my question is, after reviewing these, and one is because I saw that the LLC has one application for the grow facility as well as a dispensary. Is there a conflict of interest with that because they are the same LLC? Or is that okay because they're just trying to attempt to get the license and they're accepting one for either or? Because it seems that would be a conflict of interest with sales for selling to themselves and there's no QA, QC there. And I was just curious about that. Or are they able to apply for both, or is it legal for them to have both? So that was one of my questions.
Yeah, so that's a good question, actually, and the state actually encourages, in a lot of cases, what's called vertical integration. They are legally allowed to apply for any of the facilities that they choose to. There are several applicants that I know of in Carson City, and these are no exception, that have applied for dispensary, cultivation, and production, in some cases on the same site. There is no legal requirement against that, and the quality control is controlled at the state level.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions of Ms. Vansky? All right, thank you. At this time, we'll call forth the individual representing the application. And if you could identify yourself for the record, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is John Krompottic. I'm with KLS Planning in Reno.
What is your last name again, sir?
Krompottic, K-R-M-P-O-T-I-C.
Thank you.
I'm the president of KLS Planning. Thank you, sir. I am here representing the applicant, WSCC. I would also like to introduce the two gentlemen with me to the right, Del Marting and Steve Roush, who are with WSCC. If there's any things that you would have that involve their direct involvement, by all means, we could call them to the podium.
All right, sir. You have heard the testimony provided by, not testimony, but a statement provided by Ms. Pansky regarding this application?
Yes, I have.
And you've heard, made reference to the special conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you've also, there are some changes as well, minor changes that she made reference to in a memo. Are you familiar with that memo?
Yes, I am. She just handed it to me.
All right, sir. And are you in agreement with those conditions?
In complete agreement. I think she did a fabulous job on the staff report, very thorough analysis. I think the conditions are real fair. We accept every one of them as written. And then, of course, the other thing were the minor technical changes she mentioned in the memo, and then also the supplement from Mr. Stevenson, who I have spoke with as well.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and allow you to make any statement.
Okay, I'm going to go quickly through a PowerPoint that Susan is going to walk through with me because I don't have a clicker. And I realize there will be a little bit of redundancy here, but I think it's important given this is new to all of us. And so if we could go ahead and walk through this. There's the site. Next, Susan. Susan went through that. To reiterate the parking, we have actually, we estimated conservatively 5 to 10 employees in the application. Then in talking with the grow expert, who's really the source of a great deal of knowledge on this whole operation, he told me it's going to be more like 4 employees. The point being that we look to have more than adequate parking with the 18 that will be restriped on the property. A couple of the photos, the SEA group industrial will be removed. The applicant, to again reaffirm what Susan had mentioned, is that we will likely not have a sign even though there is the possibility of one down the road, but it's going to be a very discreet use. The existing building and park, landscaping, okay, next. Next. There is, again, Susan did a fine job in describing this. It's very straightforward. Flowering rooms where all the grow goes, break room, work area, and office. And a very low-intensity operation. I prepared this map because I think it's really important in my profession to hear, understand, and appreciate what people have to say that are showing concerns about a project or a use. As you guys know, this zoning has been established as a legal zoning, as a candidate site for this type of use. So it's really about looking at the impacts of a special use permit. Mr. Stevenson and I spoke yesterday. He's with GSE Inc. You saw his memo in the staff report. His concern is, I think primarily he's pointing to this being a, excuse me, what he is calling a aerospace hub. And there's nothing in any of the city legislation that we've researched that calls this. This is simply general industrial zoning that would allow for his use and allow for this use. His site is vacant adjacent to this site to the north. The other person who contacted Susan, Mr. Delarge, Plasma Tech Etch, which is directly across the street a little bit to the south. I wrote him an email yesterday, then I replied to my own email asking for, I said I'd be glad to meet with him, talk to him. Again, same thing, I want to understand his issues. In the staff report, he noted a concern with crime and property values, this use being adjacent or close to it. So I do have some research that shows there is no, actually a reduction in crime in relation to something proximate to cultivation facilities. and no impact negative on property values. There is another gentleman I spoke with today. He said he'd like to remain anonymous, but I believe that I addressed his concerns, and he said he wouldn't be here. Maybe he is, maybe he's not, but that was Mr. Kress, who was also noted in Susan's staff report. Next, Susan. So here's my, again, this is touched on by Susan, but I'd like to, I believe in a special use permit, what you're really dealing with is proving your case about compatibility and appropriateness for a location. So the key issues, key impacts are compatibility with adjacent uses, intensity/traffic, security, and then this odor control, which has been a fine source of me learning something about it, and certainly a valid point in trying to show how we are compatible. On compatibility, Susan mentioned it, no adjacent residential. I think that's what's key. The law says so. This is general industrial and then limited industrial around the property just outside that band of general industrial. In terms of intensity, very, very low intensity, kind of surprising to me, but 4 employees at the cultivation estimate a shipping 1 truck per week of a shipping operation. So certainly it's very low intensity with respect to traffic, employees, and parking. Other impacts or items on impacts, we talked about signage, the fact that it won't be prominent, and probably no sign is a good thing for the discreteness. Certainly kind of weaves in quietly into the surroundings. The security, a couple of things that are already committed is the surveillance cameras inside and outside the building, the security metal grills over all the doors and windows. The camera system consists of 13 cameras, and then, of course, a camera that's 360-degree for the vault and reception. The applicant has assured me that if they need further evaluation by a third-party security contractor, they would be willing to do that, but there's kind of some still understanding how this is all going to shake out. So that's something they're committed to doing if necessary. Odor control. I talked to the grow expert today, who's also a principal in their Denver operation. Very knowledgeable man, and he seemed more concerned than anybody that I've talked to or has had the experience with visiting a cultivation facility. He said they have taken public officials for field trips, stand directly outside the building. There's no odor whatsoever detectable to the naked nose, if you will. So in terms of odor control in the system, the technical part, ventilation system properly sized. The 2 issues that you're trying to accomplish are the grow rooms be properly balanced that will inhibit odors, and then the other is a dehumidifying system to control mold, and pathogen growth should be considered. And then, of course, there's a control for the amount of humidity. Then the other thing that's really captures it all is the activated carbon filtration system, ACF, which is typical in the industry, very high-tech type of thing that they implement in the building, and it completely controls the odor emission that would otherwise be. Next. That's really just more detail, size, and layout of the cultivation operation. And a little more detail on that first bullet point. Second bullet point is one of the carbon filtration is one of the least energy intensive. I think that's important because there's been speculation about how intense the energy consumption is for both the growing bulbs and the filtration system. So that covers it on that bullet point. And then, of course, there's a preventive maintenance and replacement plan that's established by the applicant. Energy usage, just in terms of, you have basically 1,000-watt bulbs that are in the flowering and grow rooms. So they are big bulbs. They use the best energy efficiency out there, is what I've learned, again, from the grower. Energy Star Seal, wherever possible. They use high-efficiency CFLs and LEDs. There's a lot of acronyms in the electrical business, just like the planning. And he gave me a perspective of, just to give some, I always like context, because we don't know what a 100-watt bulb is versus a 1,000-watt until we know some context. And he said it's like the lights you'd see at a shopping center, a parking lot light, commercial light, that's about a 1,000-watt bulb, high-pressure sodium. And this, at build-out in its intensity, would be about 50 of those lights. That's the equivalence in some form of comparison. Next. Oh, that's it. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mr. Stevenson here, I know I'd like to have some rebuttal time if there's any other testimony to try and address their concerns. I think it's important. And certainly, if you needed to hear from the applicant themselves, they would be here as well. Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Would the applicant at this time like to come forward and say something, make a statement himself? Or wait for the rebuttal?
Yeah, my
Okay.
name is Walter Marting. I'm an officer of the company, WSCC. I think this presentation's been excellent. I'd prefer just to address any comments or questions that the commission may have. So
Okay.
nothing beyond what Mr. Krumpatek has already presented.
Okay, one of the questions I had is that either one of you two gentlemen may offer a response to it, but you indicated there was data, you had data substantiating the fact that there was no adverse impact in the surrounding environment of a cultivation facility. What's the basis of that documentation?
Are you talking about on property values or?
Yes.
Do you have a screen I can put this on? I'll just share it with you, and if you want to get into details, I have an article, Crime in Denver Decreases After Pot Legalization. This was written in the 420 Times on April 10th of 2014. It gets into all different types of crime activity, and the bottom line was a reduction. Another, Mr. Chair, is Washington Post, which I would hope is considered objective in the Denver environment. And this says, legalizing medical marijuana does not lead to crime, according to actual crime statistics. And again, I could go through these in detail if you wish on your overhead. And then I had a third one that says, legalizing, the source here, is Huffington Post. And this says legalizing medical marijuana. I did not handpick these, by the way. I just asked the question like you gentlemen are asking, and found that legalizing medical marijuana may actually reduce crime, study says. I do not have anything with me on property values. Impact, yay or nay.
You're not aware of any adverse impact on the adjacent properties then?
I'm really not, yeah. Okay. We've tried to do our very best in looking at every way we can in terms of impact analysis of this, and I'm just not seeing anything adverse. Perception, there's some legitimately, people have perception that's concerning, but nothing of any tangible impact.
Just one other question.
Yeah.
There must have been a basis by which you and your clients or who your representative made a decision to, where you picked this particular site.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that with the commission?
I don't know, other than that, it's tough to find a vacant building at a zoned location. And I think that happens to be for sale. And I think you kind of go through that analysis and they find this site and said, this is a candidate site. But Mr. Marting, if you wanted to get into it in more detail, maybe he could elaborate.
The main reason the site was picked was, as John has noted, the building was for sale, and one of the primary owners of our company, equity holders, ended up buying the building. We wanted to have complete control over what we did there, remodeling it, handling everything with security and the outside control of traffic and all of that. So we ended up buying that building because it was in the right place and gave us that kind of control. That was the primary reason.
All right, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And I'd like to bring it to the commission now, see who on the commission has any questions at all. So if you'll just bear with us for a
Thank
moment. Any commissioner, Mr. Sadler?
Just a couple things, and this may be answered by either you or the planning department. Is signage required on a building as long as the number's there for mail delivery or whatever?
I don't believe it is, no.
And the other thing I was just curious about, you mentioned up to 50,000 watt bulbs. Are most of the windows going to be covered or whatever as far as light, because it is fairly close to the airport? I mean, was it going to be like a giant beacon out there at night with all these lights going, or?
Joel, can you help me with that?
This is a completely enclosed facility.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
We grow our product with hydroponic growing techniques.
Gotcha.
So very little water, it's all internal,
Right.
all lighting, everything is secure, there's no light that escapes, no odor.
Thank you for that. I figured that. Thank you.
Mr. Castro?
I find the one truck a week description very vague, so if we could go in further on that. And then I also find that the third-party contracted security would be, in my opinion, a no-brainer, and something that I think we should even consider an amendment to this motion with my fellow supervisors here, fellow commissioners. So if we could go more into detail about the one truck a week and what that is, what's going on with that, and also to discuss further with regards to third-party security, especially with a concern from a couple local owners of locations near your facility. And the third party being more so during non-occupied hours. And I'll leave it to you from there.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Marting on the commitment. So you're suggesting a change to the condition to just make that a requirement?
Well, I think it's
Third-party
something.
security.
I think it's something we need to discuss. I think
Okay.
it's important to it.
Yeah. And then,
We want to do that ourselves, we consider the same thing. Yeah, I mean, a truck's a truck. Our partner in Denver has an identically sized cultivation and dispensary operation there. And he typically delivers by car in the back seat the product that he needs. We're not talking about a big semi or anything like that, or even a flatbed truck. There's enough room in the back seat or a trunk of a car. And again, the state's very specific about how you actually do transport it. So to call it a truck is probably an exaggeration. Sorry. Did you hear all that, or you want it again? Truck is an exaggeration. What our partner's doing is really just by car, maybe by SUV, a small amount in the back seat, sufficient to meet the weekly requirements of his dispensary, which is a successful one and has provided product by an equivalently sized cultivation operation in Denver. So we're not talking big semis in and out of here. It's a very small kind of private vehicle setup.
All right, so why don't you stay there while we finish
Sure.
with the commission?
That's fine. I'll keep
All right,
popping
sir.
up and down here.
Is that,
Well, I mean, it's kind of a can of worms because you're also applying for a dispensary. So we're talking about an item that can be transported in a regular car. So is there any limits, regulations, anything with regards to items that already been set forward on any of this? I'm just kind of curious.
The state
Yeah,
has-
and my thing being that basically you got, 50 to 100 deliveries going on every day out of, it just seems all vague. That's all I'm asking. I'm just saying it's
Well-
very vague.
The state has specified the amount of marijuana that can be delivered from the dispensary to a patient or patients. That's very clear. 7 ounces can be transported in a vehicle which is secure, has a roadmap, has a delivery plan, has a cell phone, and a lot of security provisions separate from the cultivation. That plan is clearly spelled out in the state's requirements. So it's 7 ounces from the dispensary to different patients. The state has not specified how much can be transported from a cultivation to a dispensary. I'm going by what the operation in Denver typically is seeing, and we don't expect it to be much greater than what I've just talked about. So those rules are not yet enforced or identified by the state for the transportation from the cultivation to the dispensary. But we don't expect it to be every day. It would be once a week, and that's enough to supply the needs of the dispensary, most likely.
And to my fellow commissioners, I don't mean to be difficult or to the planning, but coming from the city of Los Angeles and going through this being all set up, if you don't control it thoroughly from the beginning, it can become an issue. So that's why I'm throwing these items out there to my fellow commissioners and the planning department. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Mr. Sadler, you have a question?
But we need to go back to what we're here for, which is to just approve the location, correct, I believe?
Yeah, I would, given the fact that there are pretty hefty state regulations, while they haven't specifically said how much can be transported from a cultivation facility in any one truckload, I would caution you to make that limit, because if there ends up being a problem off the site, it's not something that really is controlled by the special use permit itself. In addition to that, I would caution also placing a requirement on the third-party security system, because that's something that is heavily regulated at the state level as opposed to at the local level. So things to think about when you're making the consideration.
Ms. Pansky, I appreciate your comments regarding the third-party security and the fact that it is being addressed by the state level. That was one of my issues that I was concerned about. But I appreciate you addressing that matter. Thank you. Mr. Plemmel?
Thank you. I was just going to add that, so as part of the special use permit, these are being properly considered as part of the special use permit, but just to tag on to that a little bit, that if there do end up being problems with deliveries or crime, there is always the show cause. If the police or if the sheriff's department is having a specific problem because of this, that becomes a chronic nuisance, because this is a special use permit, we do have the ability to come back and add those conditions later or revoke a special use permit. So there are processes to address it. Good part of the discussion. I concur that I don't think we necessarily want to try to solve a problem we don't know is a problem yet, but there are ways, because it's a special use permit, to address it if it does become a problem.
It would appear that one of the most significant concerns would be security around the facility when it's unoccupied. And I think you're addressing that with security cameras
Exactly.
and possibly may consider a third-party security?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but it's a possibility, correct?
Very definitely.
And you're going to be addressing that issue as you continue to progress?
Yes, as we go forward. See where
As you
we
go
are.
forward.
But we're not averse to that at all.
All right, sir. And any, yes, sir, Mr. Owens.
Beings, we've actually kind of referred to it. How many shifts, what is going to be the occupancy of the building?
Our hours of operation, days
Hours,
of week,
yeah.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. are the cap, 7 days per week.
So after 8 p.m., there will be no growers or whatever?
That's exactly right. No employees. I mean, I'm sure, like we've all done, you go to a building occasionally for whatever, but those are the hours of operations with the employees.
Ms. Pansky.
Might want to just clarify that, just because the statement in the application that was made was that generally you'll stay within the hours of 7 to 8, but that there may be times outside of those hours that people would be on site. Also, I'll clarify for the record that the 7 to 8 o'clock timeframe is not a limitation on cultivation, it's only on dispensaries.
Okay. Any other commissioner have questions of these gentlemen? All right, thank you very much. We'll open it for any potential public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd now like to invite any member of the public to come forward, address yourself, identify yourself at the podium, and make any statements regarding this application.
Thank you. My name's Greg Stevenson. I own the parcel just north of the planned special use permit. And a little background on me, I've been in the defense aerospace business all my life. I've spent my whole life defending this country, rather than accelerating its demise.
Can we have you speak up a little louder, please?
I'm strongly opposed, and the reason is we have a very limited skilled workforce in our aerospace and defense business. We rely on federal contracts. Medical marijuana is not allowed by the federal government. It will completely send the wrong message to the federal contracting possibilities that we have at our disposal. U.S. SOCOM, with our limited forces, has now purchased 20,000 acres in Silver Springs. The DoD Commerce is right in our back door. I helped write the UAV test site plan for Senator Reid, which we won in the state of Nevada. Billions of dollars are on the line. We cannot afford this sort of interruption. I'm sorry. If you're going to be there, I'm out. Please buy me out, but I will not make excuses for this. Thank you.
We may have some questions of you, sir.
Yes.
The question I have is you've indicated that it's against federal law. My question is, are you aware of any specific data where it's facilities such as your own are prohibited from conducting business?
I do classified work. I can't have this kind of security breach. No way. Absolutely not.
But you're contemplating or presuming there'd be a security breach. But do you have any documentation that this violates any particular federal rulings?
I can provide it. I admit I'm late coming to this session. I should have been more prepared. I do not have my view graphs. I can do so if there's a chance to present. I'll provide that.
Well, obviously, we're concerned about this particular location, and you heard the explanation provided by Ms. Pansky earlier as to what we can address. And there's information we need to address our findings of fact, and that's why I'm asking you these questions. If you have any documented data that would prevent these gentlemen from conducting business in this particular location.
It's just simply, I may be the cry in the wilderness here. My business is very small and highly specialized. The distinction is the investment in the aerospace industry has been made. It's all around the neighborhood. Out of what I've heard just now, you need a building with a few provisions for electricity and water, and you're in business to do the cultivation. That could be done anywhere, absolutely anywhere. We're talking machine tools, highly skilled, trained technicians. Added to that, when I hire college grads, they don't have the skills. Our education system is dropping off. We've turned in computer science for industrial arts. We don't have trained, skilled machinists. It's hurting us badly. I have numerous NASA programs that use the STEM education process. In other words, in the absence of apprenticeship programs, we're now rekindling it through these NASA programs to train and show students how they can apply their education. Get their hands involved. Get involved in making the products. We're losing it. You go to Europe, you go to Japan, they have it. Apprenticeship programs. They have youth, they're skilled, they're ready, they're anxious. What are we doing? We're under attack.
Well, do you understand there are very specific issues that we, as a commission and the city,
yeah, the message is what's being said here. The message is there's good money in cultivating marijuana. I've been brought up my whole life to avoid the stuff. What are we doing? Take an aspirin. Come on. We don't need it. Thank you.
All right, sir. But before you leave, sir, let me check and see if any of the commissioners have any questions of you. Any commissioners? Mr. Satter, you have a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Stevens. My question, you mentioned it as far as, do you know of any contracts that have been lost or because of this? Because there are other people at the airport I know have federal contracts, Clickbond and other businesses out there, and none of them or the airport authority is speaking up. So I don't know, unless there's
Well, look,
specific
it's,
contracts that
it's
could be
very
lost or
evident
whatever.
that the sensitivity of the issue is being one of covertness. In other words, no signage, keep it quiet, everyone will be fine. I'm right next door. I'm trying to conduct classified federal contracts. Okay? It's not possible. Please buy the property. That's all I can say. I'm very, very disappointed.
Any other
You know,
commissioners?
I came to Reno in 1988. I worked for John Chisholm. We started Sierra Nevada Corporation with 6 of us. That company is 3,200 employees today, $2 billion a year. What are we talking about? Do you think Fadi Osman would put up with this? Not a chance.
Mr. Owens, you had a question, Mr. Stevenson?
Do you actually have a facility next to this facility, or where?
My parcel is just north of it. It's a dinky little 1.5 acre parcel, but, you know, the plans have been pending for production there for the last 10 years. I agree. I've been challenged for not having the money to put it up, but truth be known, I have a facility at the lake, and I maintain that year-round, and I've got 28,000 square foot building up there that serves our purposes at the moment. But Governor Sandoval, through Tom Wilczek and the other folks at Economic Development, have been inviting me to come to Nevada and put the production here, and that was always my plan. But now I've got to take a different course. I mean, I'm afraid I've lost all my enthusiasm to go ahead. I mean, this is a situation where having the facility right there in that corner would have been ideal. I mean, I normally get heat treating done in Mound House, castings done up the hill. I get gears cut at CGI across the street. We have chromaloid gas turbines down the street. We have Tesla coming. Everyone's applauding. Do you realize that's a car nobody can afford and it has no range? I build hybrid diesel electric power plants for the military. They will be knocking on my door because Toyota's not going to sell them a license to build a Prius hybrid technology. We're losing. Okay?
Are there
Sorry.
any other questions of Mr. Stevenson? Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you.
I will allow the applicant come back for any potential rebuttal regarding the statements by Mr. Stevenson. I should perhaps, before you start, let me ask if there's any other member of the public that would like to come forward before this gentleman provides any further testimony regarding this matter? Okay, excuse me. Mr. Kimbody, if you just...
Question. I would like to know what this is doing for the city of Carson. How is it going to benefit Carson City and its inhabitants? And that's basically my question, sir. What's your name? My name is Sherilyn White.
Okay.
I'm sorry to see Mr.
Excuse me one more time.
Oh, sure.
Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to address this particular application? Thank you very much, sir. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, it's John Krompatik with KLS Planning. Just a couple of thoughts with respect to Mr. Stevenson. He was eloquent in expressing his concern. I think something he told me yesterday, he's had that property since 1999. If he was here, I wished he were here. I believe he left, but I just wonder about his commitment to doing this, and for some reason he's put off by it. We're trying to be very sensitive to everybody involved in this process. It's largely what I do for a living. I would also call to your attention, I know you all know this, but I think at the end of the day, our legal findings are very important in this process. And finding number 2 is about issuance not detrimental, will not be detrimental to the use, and so on, right? Peaceful enjoyment, economic value, and all of that goes. That's really a catch-all finding that's very typical in the special use permit finding analysis. And I believe, I mean, I certainly can make the case I went through every single item that's described there, and there is real no tangible impact. So I just wanted to share that with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krompatik. Any commissioners have any other questions of Mr. Krompatik before we dismiss him? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. At this particular point, do you have any other questions of Ms. Pansky?
Yeah, for Ms. Pansky. Just
identify yourself for the record, sir.
Victor Castro.
Okay.
I'm still struggling with, okay, I understand hours of operation, hours of occupation. So maybe I bring this to you because you know more about what's being handled at the state level. What about hours of delivery?
I don't believe that the state has placed a limit on hours of delivery.
So at the state level, it's 7 to 8 p.m. right now?
No, the 7 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. limitation is in Carson City only and only for dispensaries. That's something that we placed on.
Are we, hours of operation and delivery are the same, or there could be a difference there?
Well, again, that applies to dispensaries only, so it's not applicable to this
Okay,
application.
right, because again, we're talking cultivation. So there's been
yes.
nothing applied towards cultivation.
Correct.
Yet they're delivering to dispensaries. And as you noted, even could be private homes.
The cultivation facilities will not be delivering to private homes. Only the dispensaries can deliver to private homes in very limited quantities.
Okay.
So, for example, I believe that the statement was made that it's 7 ounces. My understanding was that it was 10 ounces that could be delivered at any one time. If my understanding is correct, and we'll just go with that for the sake of the example, a person can acquire from a dispensary at certain intervals 2.5 ounces at a time, which means that a delivery vehicle from a dispensary to individuals would be limited to 4 individuals at a time. But again, that's for dispensaries only, not for cultivation.
What is set forth already for cultivation?
There are no regulations for cultivation at the state
None.
level that I'm aware of, no.
None at the state level.
Okay. I don't think you need to address anything further.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions of Ms. Pansky or this gentleman by any commission member? There not being any, we'll bring it, oh, excuse me, Mr. Plemmel.
Sorry, I wanted to maybe address Ms. White's question or put it in the context of this review. And I think the question is, what are the benefits of allowing medical marijuana generally? How is allowing medical marijuana benefiting Carson City? So I'm going to probably not give a very satisfying answer to that, but just want to address that, again, as Susan mentioned, we went through a process to adopt the ordinance. It has been approved. We're not at this, we're past the point of debating whether or not to allow medical marijuana in Carson City. We had those discussions with the Planning Commission, with the Board of Supervisors over at least 2 or 3 meetings. We notified everybody within these every property owner within these zoning districts and surrounding these zoning districts that we were considering do it. And there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of testimony, way more than, I'm not advocating for it or against it here. There was just a lot of testimony on both sides, more than we can even go to here. And as a result of those, we are at this point where they are allowed in these limited zoning districts within Carson City. So I guess, I would encourage, if you really want to know how it ended up being approved in Carson City, to go, you can contact us. We can go back to those meetings, tell you which meetings you could watch and get the minutes from. But that's not what this board, this commission here tonight is not here to determine whether or not medical marijuana generally is appropriate for Carson City, but whether or not these specific locations meet the standards that have been adopted in Carson City ordinance. So again, I know that's probably not a satisfying answer to that question, but I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Plemmel. I believe that commission members fully understand that, and I appreciate conveying that to members of the public so they understand where we are in this particular application and some of the others that will be following. Any other commissioners? Bring it back to the commissioners for discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a few observations, and one is, I understand the applicants not, I understand their reasoning for not wanting to have a sign, and I wholly support that. I would actually like to see the condition limit their, to say that they can't identify the product that's being grown in that facility on the, if they put up a sign. It would have to be a sign just identifying generally the owner of the building. I mean, if they were going to put up a sign. And
Okay. Mr. Plimmel, do you want to respond to that?
I'll defer it to the applicant. I don't know that staff has a problem with a condition like that. My assumption, based on my previous conversations with them, is that they don't intend to advertise what they're growing there, but I see where you're going with that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And it may be that, rather than, I mean, maybe in this case, we put it as a condition for the applicant, but that it become part of the standard, that any signage not be, that the signage for a medical marijuana facility not specific, or at least for a growing operation or a processing operation, not identify the product. A dispensary is probably going to be a different story because that's more of a retail operation and you need to identify the product. But in this case, since they're not selling anything other than through wholesale to someone else, that they won't need to have that identification.
Well, under that discussion, I wasn't going to say anything, but then you said, let's put it in the code. But what I was kind of alluding to, is this content-based sign regulation. Kind of concerns me just a little bit, but I was kind of going to leave it up to them if they're willing to do that in this case.
I think we got a simple solution here. We will volunteer a condition to address your concern. And that way, because I was thinking about the same thing about content of signing, but you propose it, I think it's a fair thought. Talk to my clients about it. We'll accept a condition so that we don't describe the product.
We certainly don't want to advertise what it
Yeah.
is.
Right. Ms. Pansky, do you have any language for that special condition so that it can be addressed by the commission?
Let me get back to you on that. Let me find I have a signage condition. Let me see if I can make a modification and make a recommendation to you real quick.
And I just have one other comment. In condition number 10, should probably just cross out the last in the shopping center lot.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, it would just be the parking lot.
Okay, anything further? Okay, Mr. Sadler, you had a question, comment?
Well, to not hold this up or whatever, wouldn't this be addressed when they came for signage anyway?
Not necessarily, because as Community Development Director Plimmel mentioned, we don't typically regulate sign content, and we wouldn't do that at the sign permit level with staff. So it would be more appropriate for them to
do it at this
volunteer a
time.
condition, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Bringing it back to the commission, Mr. Castro.
Okay, so earlier for Ms.
Excuse me,
Pansky.
is this a question of one of Ms. Pansky, or is this as part of this?
Kind of to both. It's to fellow commissioners, and then with Ms. Pansky's
All right,
guidance.
sir.
Earlier, she suggested steering away from amending the condition with regards to third-party security because it was being handled at the state level. But then you did state that hours of delivery is not being handled at the state level. And being that this is going to be the first of what is already been approved 4 cultivation facilities, so 3 more will come before us, I feel there is a great need to limit the actual hours of delivery to some degree, or to discuss it further.
They're going to be limited to the 7 to 8 p.m.
But that's for operation. That's not delivery.
We've got to be really careful.
Delivery if it's closed.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Yeah,
We need to be
so-
very careful that we don't go beyond the scope of which we're capable.
Well, and that's why I'm asking Ms. Pansky, because she kind of alerted to, well, this is being handled at the state level. You guys, you're going outside your scope. but hours of delivery is not being handled at the state level, and maybe it's something that we need to handle for the city of Carson City, because while this location is somewhat isolated, future locations may not be, and those hours of operation are understandable, but actual delivery is something I think should be considered.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
You're welcome to.
Thank you.
Just identify yourself for the record.
John Krimpatic, KLS Planning, on behalf of the applicant. I think Mr. Castro brings up a good point. We can also volunteer a condition, just amend the condition 2B, say hours of operation shall be limited, hours of operation including deliveries shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Is that what you were looking for, sir?
Yes, to a certain degree, but I'll be honest. You know, I'm actually looking for more. I'm looking for more of a realistic business day, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Things that are going on to 8 p.m. with regards to delivery, I struggle with. I understand the operation itself will not be affecting anyone going to 8 p.m., but the actual delivery where people are leaving, vehicles are taking product, it concerns me because there are 3 other cultivations that are going to come before us at some point. So it's something I'm putting out there to think about.
Well, okay, so for clarification, I cannot confirm that we will have 3 more come in front of us. Okay. What I can confirm is that I believe 5 applications have been submitted to the state for cultivation. Whether or not they obtain provisional certificates, I believe will determine whether they come in front of you or not.
Okay, but we can be pretty much determined that whatever is decided or agreed on today, that anybody that applies in the future with regards to cultivation facility will be able to follow, will be able to point this case out, and pretty much all the same standards will follow.
Possibly, however, I'll just to remind you that every location is unique, and we look at every location specifically for its site attributes. One thing that I would like to bring to your attention before you make a change in the conditions, and if the applicant is amenable to that, that's fine. I don't know what the extent of their deliveries will be as far as range, but what I will say is that they may not just be delivering to dispensaries within Carson City. They may need to leave their facility outside of those hours so they can reach a dispensary in a different part of the state. So I would be concerned about limiting that for that reason.
I understand, and I'm gonna leave it with my fellow commissioners, but it was mentioned here today, gentlemen.
Okay, bringing it back to the commission. Any other comments or discussion? Mr. Sadler, you satisfied? Okay. All right. I'm prepared to receive a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
And I have language for that other condition if you'd like to hear
Oh,
it
yes.
first. So this would be a modification to condition number 9. It would state the applicant shall submit proposed signage to the planning division for review and approval prior to installation. A sign permit may be required depending on the nature of the proposed signage. All signage shall conform to Division 1.20 and Division 4 of the Carson City Development Standards as applicable, and shall not contain text or graphics that describe the nature of the cultivation's use.
That works for me. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Mr. Eswin, go ahead, sir.
I move to approve SUP-14-080, a special use permit request from WSCC Inc., property owner Grace Note Real Estate LLC, to allow a medical marijuana cultivation facility on property zone General Industrial located at 3493 Arrowhead Drive, APN 005-5052-03, based on the findings and subject to the conditions as modified by Ms. Pansky's memo and the change to item number 9, condition number 9, approved and contained in the staff report.
We have a motion for approval made by Mr. Eswin. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Second by Mr. Steele. Excuse me.
Just to clarify, and there was a modification in number 10 as well. Yeah.
Okay. Do you agree with that, all of those?
Yes, I do.
Conditions and modifications?
Yes, I
Okay.
second
And
that
that's-
motion.
You're seconding that?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Motion carried, unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, while everyone is here and before everybody starts leaving, and this will be applicable for all of the applications, this is the final approval on special use permits at the Planning Commission, this special use permit and the other special use permits before you tonight. Anybody that has participated in the process may appeal this decision. This is the final decision. Unless it's appealed, an aggrieved party has 10 days in which to appeal, and if they have a question on that or would like to appeal, they need to contact the Planning Division within 10 days to submit that appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Plimmel. Moving on in public hearing matters. F-3, SUP-14-081 for possible action. To consider request from WSCC Incorporated, property owner, Sandbar GP, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zone general commercial located at 2765 Highway 50 East, APN 008-312-12. Ms. Penske.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you just stated in your introduction, the applicant is proposing to operate a medical marijuana dispensary on Highway 50 East, 2765, Unit A. In the aerial in front of you on the screen now, you'll see the subject property. The tenant space that the operator proposes to occupy is the very north section of the property in Unit A. It's 2,450 square feet. These are a couple of pictures of the existing facility today. And again, a closer up aerial of the dispensary location within the existing shopping center. This dispensary will sell medical marijuana infused products, and medical marijuana paraphernalia. They will have a retail area, lobby, security area, training area, vault, storage and restrooms, and they will adhere to the hours of operation that are prescribed in the development standards, which are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. This is a rendering of what the applicant proposes the exterior would look like. Really just a few minor changes. There will be signage to the right of the building, probably signage on the pylon sign that exists on the property as well, possibly some enhanced landscaping, and some changes to the windows that would include bars across them to ensure security. And one of the things that staff has noted in the staff report is that we would like to see the proposal for those security grills across the windows and doors, so that we can make sure that aesthetically they blend with the building, because this is a public use for the benefit of the medical marijuana patients. So we have recommended a condition of approval for that. This is the floor plan that's proposed by the applicant, and I'll kind of just briefly walk you through it. And this is actually very typical of the medical marijuana dispensary floor plans that I've seen for a lot of the different applications. Basically, what you have are secure doors at the front. There is a lobby area where medical marijuana patients would wait until it was their turn to enter the actual dispensary. So it's not like a pharmacy where you literally enter the retail space first and it's right there. You actually enter it more like a doctor's office or a dentist's office and wait in the lobby, check in with the reception desk, and then at some point you will be released to go through the second set of doors back into the dispensary, which is located at the back of the facility here. So they're proposing a counter at the very eastern part of the building within their dispensary, and then they have several other ancillary uses within the dispensary, including offices, training facilities, security rooms, break rooms, storage, and things like that. The applicants also provided a general rendering of what it would look like inside the retail space of the marijuana facility, to kind of just to give you an idea. And this is intended to show that they're committed to meeting the professional, dignified requirements for the look of both the exterior and the interior of the building. So as I had done in the previous one, I will also quickly go through the development standards for this project to demonstrate how this facility meets those requirements. Everything will pretty much apply to this facility because it is a dispensary. All medical marijuana requires special use permit, which is in front of us today. If they move locations, they will need to apply again. No consumption of medical marijuana on the site, and we've recommended a condition for that. All business activities will take place inside. It must have the appearance of professional, orderly, dignified, and consistent with traditional style of pharmacies and medical offices. Staff believes that they have met that requirement. Outside display is prohibited. They're not proposing it, but we have recommended a condition. Accessory outside storage shall comply with Title 18. They're not proposing it at this time. Access will be restricted in compliance with state regulations. We've put a condition for that. No MME-related products shall be visible from outside the building. And this is more important for the dispensaries because there is the possibility that you would be able to see medical marijuana or medical marijuana paraphernalia from the outside. I think that the applicant has demonstrated that because their retail space is at the rear of the building, it's unlikely. However, there's always a possibility they could put things in the windows. We have the development standard there for that very reason, to prohibit that. And we have recommended a condition. They're not proposing specific signage, but they will, again, need to come in front of the planning division for those specific requirements. Parking for dispensaries is 1 space per 300. Based on the square footage of 2,450 square feet, 9 spaces are required. Because this dispensary is located in a shopping center, the parking calculation is a little bit different than a straight calculation for just that use, because shopping centers are considered a combined shared use. They have 48 spaces on the site total, and based on the square footage of the entire building, 50 spaces technically would be required, but this building was constructed prior to the development standards with these specific parking requirements for shopping centers or otherwise. So we feel that the shopping center at the 48 spaces is appropriate for this dispensary and the other uses. No more than 2 dispensaries. Again, as I stated previously, there's a condition of approval saying that this special use permit is only valid if they obtain their provisional certificate. If they do not, they will not become one of the 2 dispensaries that is allowed in Carson City. An MME shall not be located within 1,000 feet of the public school, private school, or any other school for that matter, or 300 feet within 300 feet from a community facility. We have verified that through their initial state application. A single point of secure entry shall be provided, and as I had pointed out on the floor plan, there is only 1 point of public entry that's provided. Hours of operation shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they have proposed to be consistent with this standard. Drive-through services prohibited. It's not proposed at this facility, nor is the facility set up for such a service. Dispensary shall not be located on the same street as residentially zoned property within 300 feet, and staff also has verified this requirement. Then finally, the dispensary is located where sufficient, convenient, and safe access is provided to the public. We have determined, because of the dispensary's location along Highway 50, there is sufficient and convenient access through existing roadways and sidewalks. There is also a jump around Carson route that is relatively close along Airport Road and Highway 50. That the proposed location has adequate lighting and street improvements. On this one, Staff determined that the location has adequate street improvements, but there is a concern about lighting because it appears that there is no lighting on this site, especially in the location where the dispensary is proposed. So we've recommended a condition of approval to place lighting on the building at this tenant space and also within the landscape area for the parking lot lighting that's just adjacent to the north. We are recommending approval, and we have received no public comments for or against this particular dispensary. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicants, as you know, are the same applicants for the cultivation facility. They also have a presentation as they did for the last, but I'll answer any questions before we turn it over to them.
Okay. Any commission member have any question, Ms. Pansky, at this time?
Just one.
Mr. Castro?
Where did 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., is that state? Where did that come from?
That was determined at the Carson City level. It's not regulated at the state level. We determined that we would like to see them generally within hours that are extended enough to accommodate people that work an 8 to 5 schedule, but that are not going into later evening hours where there could potentially be a security concern.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pansky. All right. If we could have the applicant come forward, please, and address this application, and identify yourself for the record, please.
Hello, Commissioners. John Krimpatic with KLS Planning Design, representing the applicant. I would like to go briefly through, this one will be much quicker than the last, a PowerPoint, because it's very much almost identical or very similar to Susan's. Okay, so there's the site, of course, next to the AMPM, right near the freeway. Susan went into detail there. We restriped that. That's the 48 spaces that we've talked about. There is some area in the back that could be candidate for more parking, but it sounds like staff is okay. Again, it is a low-intensity use, 4 or 5 employees. Existing front of the building. There's the proposed. I think I would like to commend, I think, Brad Van Wart is, I've worked with just about every architect in the region, and he's a very talented guy, and he'll do fine work. That's his rendering. She and Van Wart, Bigodi Architects, so just to give you an idea of what he's got coming on the exterior. There is the interior. The words that I think are really important, Susan mentioned, but the building inside and out, professional, orderly, and dignified. I think that's what we're trying to accomplish in showing you guys these renderings. Susan went through that. You can see if you wanted to get into the surveillance, it is about 13 cameras here as well. I counted them just to make sure. There's an existing sign by way of disclosure, and we've talked about this. This would be a candidate for a sign at some future date, a very discreet, low-intensity kind of signing request that would obviously have to comply with Carson City sign code. The landscaping that Susan touched on would get some embellishment in that area as well. There are a couple of landscape islands for opportunity to jazz them up, and we'd be glad to do those. And there is the GC zoning. That's all I have. So nothing further. I did not talk to any citizens or neighbors or anybody on this one. It's been more straightforward from my perspective, so I'll be here for any questions that you would have.
Okay, I'd like to start with one question.
Please.
What did you have in mind for signage? Just give us an example, because you indicated you want to keep it low-key, if I understood you correctly.
It's what, from everybody I've heard in the operation, low-key. Steve wants to touch on that. He can give you more detail.
Yeah, I'm Steve Roush, by the way, with WSCC.
Thank you, sir.
Representing WSCC tonight. Good questions, great concern. We want to make sure that both from a cultivation standpoint and a dispensary standpoint, that we are doing the right thing for the community and our business. And what I'm getting at is, from a cultivation standpoint, it's in our best interest to be low-key and non-discreet and not have any known visibility about what it is that we're doing there for a variety of reasons. As far as the dispensary is concerned, we do want people to know we're there. However, again, we're not going to there will be nothing submitted for approval that I believe, in my opinion, would be beyond just the name of our business. And the name of our business would probably not have anything in the verbiage that would reflect directly what it is that we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you. Before you leave, regarding these two gentlemen, the one that provided the previous testimony as well, and just gentlemen, any commission member have any questions of them? Mr. Sadler.
The security system, in this case, and probably in both, but we're addressing this case now, the other we already did, is that just going to like into the office to a TV or something, or is that going to an outside source for your security, or how is that? I'm just
Yeah, good question. Again, we are modeling one of the most successful operators in the Denver, Colorado area. He has helped us with our design. He's helped us with our whole approach here. And we're going to have plenty of cameras and coverage, as you can see, for all activity that's going on inside as well as outside. There'll be recordings captured both on-site and off-site.
That's a good question. Thank you. Excuse me, we're going to deviate for just a moment. Is that the same thing as the cultivation? You got the same technique or same approach?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in our best interest, too.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of the commission members of either one of these two gentlemen at this point? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'd like to open it up to the public to come forward and address this particular application. If you could just approach the podium, identify yourself for the record. Let it be noted for the record that there's no indication that anyone from the public wishes to address this application. We'll bring it back to the commission at this time. Discussion?
Just question for planning department. Has the staff researched the distance from this location to the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, and it is well outside of the range of the 300 feet required.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Castro. Any other questions of Ms. Pansky, or should we just bring this back for discussion? Anybody, you want a discussion? You ready for a motion? All right. Let's move forward with the motion then. Motion made by Mr. Sadler.
Yes, I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve SUP-14-081, a special use permit request from WSCC Inc., property owner Sandbar, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zone general commercial located at 2765 Highway 50 East, Suite A, APN 008-312-12, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
We have a motion for approval by Mr. Sadler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Eswin. All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
We have one abstain by Mr. Castro, and everyone else has voted aye. And there's no indication of any nays. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Is there any need for a break at this time?
Up to you.
Let's just take a 5-minute break. Thank you. You're welcome, sir. right?
I think everybody's back.
And where's Danny? Because I was going to ask him if the buildings were structurally sound to be able to,
So Dan's wife is about to have a baby.
Oh, wonderful.
So he has a good excuse for not being here.
All right. We're back after the short recess, and we'll be addressing F-4, SUP-14-082 for possible action. To consider request from NNV Services 2 LLC, property owner Auburn Ravine Investors LLC, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zoned general commercial located at 3359 Highway 50 East, APN 008-303-02. Ms. Pansky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request for a medical marijuana dispensary on Highway 50, address 3359 Highway 50 East. Some of you, hi. Some of you might, the DA, everyone. Some of you might remember this facility as the old Wiener Schnitzel. It's been vacant for several years. The applicant is proposing to occupy this facility with a medical marijuana dispensary. This is a couple of pictures of the facility as it exists today. And this picture is from the rear. This is kind of a unique parcel because it's very long and narrow, so the majority of their parking is actually in the rear, and it's quite extensive for not only the marijuana use but also for fast food use. So this is the site plan that they're proposing. It basically just reiterates what's there on the site today, but I will note that they're proposing to add some parking on the east side of the building that's not there today, and that's here, and it includes several additional several additional handicap spaces that are not present today. They're proposing this facility in an existing 1,915 square foot building. As I had stated with the previous application, this dispensary will also sell medical marijuana infused products and medical marijuana paraphernalia. And they're anticipating that they will serve anywhere from 30 to 70 patrons per day, with the peak demand being 150 patrons per day. The dispensary will consist of an entryway, waiting room, retail space, security office, library, restrooms, counseling rooms, offices, and a vault. The applicant proposes to make some improvements to the exterior as well as the interior to bring this building into more of a conformance with a professional, orderly, and dignified building in the traditional style pharmacies and medical offices, which is a requirement not only at our local level but also at the state level. They also, and just to note, as I'm sure you're aware, there is a drive-through at this location. However, it will not be utilized for the dispensary, and there is a condition of approval that states as much. So the applicant proposes a security plan that will include surveillance by a third-party security company and video cameras that will surveil the property, as well as the presence of a security guard during business hours. They have slightly modified their proposed hours of operation from what the maximum requirement is. Our maximum requirement is 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They propose 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but they could certainly modify to 7 a.m. if they chose to do so at a later date, because it would still be in conformance with the development standards. So just a couple things before I go into the development standards themselves. This is the proposed floor plan, and as I had stated in the last application, very similar throughout most of the dispensaries. There's a secure entry here, and they actually have a secure entry before their next secure entry. So they have their sally port, and then they've got a waiting area where you would wait to be allowed into the retail space, and then the retail space is located here in the main area. There's a library and other ancillary uses such as counseling, a break room, an office, and then the vault and restrooms. So just very quickly, let me make sure I don't have, nope, that was the last one. Just very quickly, I'll go through the development standards. If they move locations, they won't be able to take their special use permit with them. And I'll note too that if they discontinue operations, and this would be the case with any medical marijuana facility, if this particular applicant discontinues operations at this location, for normal special use permits, that special use permit would remain and another could come and assume it, but that's not the case with dispensaries. If a new operator comes, they get a new special use permit. No consumption of medical marijuana. It's not proposed on the premises, but we have recommended a condition. All business activities shall occur inside the permanent building, and the building shall have an orderly appearance. They are proposing that everything will occur inside and they will have an orderly appearance. They intend to, as I mentioned, modify the exterior of the building, spruce up the paint, replant landscaping, and just generally clean the property up. Staff with this facility has also recommended a couple of other things, repaint any striping on the parking lot that has faded, and there is also a fence on the western side that is in bad disrepair that needs to be replaced or repaired. So we've recommended that condition as well. Outside display is not proposed, but we do have a condition of approval for that. Outside storage is also not proposed. If it were, they would need to comply with Title 18. Division 1.12. Access to the MME shall be restricted in compliance with state regulations. We've put a condition of approval for that. No MME-related products shall be visible from outside the building. And again, is similar to the previous one. The retail space is not located in a place where it would be easy to see products from outside the building. However, there is a condition of approval that we've placed to address this regardless. This applicant is also not proposing signage at this time, so the same requirements would apply to them as far as coming before the Planning Division to gain their approval. Parking requirements, 1 space per 300. Based on the size of their building, 7 spaces would be required. Right now, the parking lot has 32, which is well above the minimum requirement, but they're proposing to add 5 for a total of 37. No more than 2 dispensaries. If they don't get their provisional certificate, as I mentioned, same as the others, they would not be one. If they do get it, they would be one of the 2. The MME will not be located within 1,000 feet of a school or 300 feet within 300 feet of a public facility. Staff has verified this previously and included the zoning letter for your reference. A single secure point of entry shall be provided, and again, that would be located here, their single point of entry. And let me just clarify, that's single point of entry for the public. So they can have other points, which they do here for rear entry into the facility for deliveries and such, but they are required to have only one public entry location. Hours of operation limited to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're proposing 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Drive-through service is prohibited. It's not proposed, and I believe I do have a condition of approval for this as well. We have also verified that this dispensary is not located within 300 feet of any residentially zoned property within 300 feet. The proposed dispensary is located where sufficient, convenient, and safe access is provided to the public. This dispensary, like the last, is located within an existing building on Highway 50. It has sufficient and convenient access through existing public streets and pathways, and it is also near a jump around Carson bus route with a bus stop at Highway 50 and Airport Road. And then this proposed location does have adequate lighting and street improvements. So they meet that condition as well. We are recommending approval, and we did receive one comment against this proposal, which is stated in the staff report. The applicants are here today to answer any questions, and I'm happy to answer any as well before we turn it over to them.
Okay. Any commission members have any questions of Ms. Pansky? Mr. Sadler?
I didn't see on this application anything about window coverings or doors or bars or any of that stuff. Is that also required?
I don't believe it's a requirement, and I don't think that they're proposing bars of any kind, but they can probably address that better.
Okay. Are there any other questions of commissioners for Ms. Pansky? Okay, not at this point in time. All right, let's call forward the applicant. And would you identify yourself for the record, sir?
Absolutely. Shane Johnson with NNV Services 2 and 3. Thank you, Commission, for having us here this evening. I gave you each a handout, and I won't bore you with all of the details, but it just shares a little bit about who we are as a group and what we're about, both front and back, a team. I do want to comment that the reason that I've gotten involved with this is because of a personal story of a young child who has a rare genetic disorder and been addicted to every opioid you could name and a bunch that you probably can't. And it's actually the child of one of my partners who's not here tonight. But it's because of that this came about and that I personally got involved. My background, undergraduate degree in neuroscience, went to Stanford Medical School, never ended up practicing medicine, worked in business my whole life with small startup companies. This kind of fits the bill in a different way than I ever anticipated. Also here with me tonight are two of my other colleagues, Doria Shoemaker, who is our Director of Patient Advocacy and Community Outreach. She co-owns and manages a natural health and wellness center today, is well-versed in nutrition and a big patient advocate. Also have Jean Marie Walsh with us here tonight. She is our Director of Security and Public Safety. That's a concern for us, and we are very intent on quality, safety, and compliance with all of the state regulations. Jean Marie Walsh was a former sergeant with the Sparks PD, and actually was responsible for overseeing the development of Sparks protocols and ordinances regarding the standing up of this business before she retired. Happy to answer any questions you may have. I can go ahead and address your question regarding window coverings right now if you like, sir.
Certainly, that'd be appreciated.
We intend to, at the recommendation of some of our security advisors, there are security films that I understand that can be placed on windows that have a nicer look to them than bars, and apparently stand up to somebody with a sledgehammer for well over a minute. So they're.
And having frequented the previous establishment, there's quite a bit of glass there, so I figured there would be something you'd be doing.
There is glass there, and it has had some bullet shot at it, and oh yeah, it's in great repair.
Okay. And what was your first and last name again, sir?
Shane Johnson.
Shane Johnson?
Yes.
All right, sir. Are there any other questions of Mr. Johnson by any of the commission members at this point?
Or either of my colleagues.
Or any of the colleagues?
If you want to.
I would like to make one comment, though. Looking at the
For the record, Mr. Owens.
Mr. Owens, I'm sorry. The way the facility is set up, from what I can see right now, you have a lot of blind parking. Almost all parking is behind the building or aside between a fence, and I'm very uncomfortable with that becoming a concern for crime.
I'll let Jean Marie answer that since she is our public safety officer and security officer.
Jean Marie Walsh for NNV Services. Essentially, I agree. The building isn't set up perfectly for security concerns for patients walking from the back lot into the front of the business towards the front door. Essentially, what we would do would be to light it completely in the dark time hours. We also will have a security officer on scene during the open hours to kind of, keep track of what's going on both in that back parking lot and in the building itself. So we would cut down or diminish or redo landscaping all around the building to make it difficult for people to hide there. Crime prevention through environmental design is, my excuse me, my thing. So, there would be some allowances made for that, because I do agree that's an issue, but criminals don't like the light, and they certainly don't want people wandering around, watching for them. So there would be special allowances made with the landscaping and the lighting and the security officers on scene during the times the business is open to kind of alleviate that concern.
Would the security officer be in the building or out of the building?
His responsibility, her responsibility would be both places. It would kind of depend on, what the time of day is. You don't necessarily want to have, one thing that's what you always do, because people figure that out and then they just do the opposite of what you got going on. So essentially, it would be a random patrolling in and out, back and forth. And obviously, during the nighttime hours, the security system would point back out there and be keeping an eye on, the comings and goings. People are not going to be allowed to loiter back there, hang out back there. We're going to be, hey, glad you got your product, but you need to, move on now. Totally a valid concern. We're going to do everything that we possibly can to minimize the impact of crime, however we can, as related to this business.
Okay, you're aware of the fact that one of the conditions of approval is that there's no use of the product on the premises. That includes the parking lot.
Correct.
So that's what the security officer will do, would prevent that type of thing.
That and the safety of the patients coming in, keeping people from, walking through the parking lot who don't have any business there, loitering there, talking there, trying to use the product there, all of those things. If the product use is being, we'll be calling up the sheriff's department immediately and doing our best job to, if they drive off, they're going to get a plate and they're going to get a description and they're going to get a direction of travel.
Okay. Mr. Sadler, you had a question?
There are 4 or 5 spots in front of that for parking too. Are you still going to utilize those out on street level? Is that available to you as well?
It is available to us, and certainly people, you'll note that we moved the entrance, the front entrance to the side of the building, and part of that was because of wheelchair access in particular. The former ADA access spots were at the very rear of the building. Right. You had to traverse around a sidewalk on the edge with a railing that was a little bit narrow and sketchy all the way around towards the front. So that's why we've reconfigured it. We anticipate that much of the time somebody would park in one of those front spots. We do have that whole back area, which is overkill. I don't anticipate it will be full.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up the spots that were out front, because that's the best parking.
We may end up deciding to come back to you if as appropriate, or to the planning department and say, you know what, let's even put a partial fence across that back, because we don't want to have it all be open space. So we were looking at all of those things to do our best to meet the needs of the community.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just a comment for the record to the applicant. I applaud the applicant for the adjustment of operation of hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., albeit just an hour, and also the offering of the third-party security definitely steps in the right direction. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? All right, we'll open up for any public comment. Is there any member of the public that would like to approach the podium and offer any comment regarding this particular application? Sir, would you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Kenny Zurdiaga, member of the public. Just a question about creating barriers around that back area. Is there an opportunity for, or are there plans for, what I'll call a high fence to control the area?
Sir, do you want to, as the applicant, do you want to respond to this question?
Sure. Shane Johnson again for the record. There is an existing fence around most of the property, as the planning department noted. It is in disrepair, but it is I'm going to guess, I have not measured it exactly, but I believe it's about a 5 to 6 foot tall fence already, solid wood fence around most of the property.
So if I understand you correctly, it is disrepair, but you're going to go make sure that it's brought up to standard?
Absolutely.
Did you hear that, sir? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Any other member of the public wish to approach the podium and comment on this application? There not being any indication as such for the record, we'll bring it back to the commission for any.
Well, I like the idea of the defensible space or whatever, however you want to look at it. If they were to cut that particular area in half or less, fence it off so there would be no access or egress to the rear portion that's not needed parking-wise or for any other reason. Just a comment.
Any other comments by any commission members?
I would, Commissioner Eswine, I would just like to ride with Commissioner Owen on my concern that rear area poses some significant security problems, and that it would be, I would consider it appropriate to close it off somehow, or at least make it so that it's not a potential hangout area.
Do you want to respond to the comments by the two commissioners?
I'll just say we're happy to do whatever the commission would like. We have security and safety as part of our first and foremost plan, so we have not gone through the full design process at this point, but certainly take it under advisement. If you want to add some sort of stipulation, I'm happy to do that too. You know better than I how this process works.
Okay, Mr. Eswin, do you want to address this as in the form of a special condition for approval?
I don't have.
The applicant has stated they're willing to work with the commission on that.
I guess.
Go ahead, Mr. Sadler.
Not wanting to tie your hands, I'm sure you'll make adjustments when you see what the usage is and what parking's needed, et cetera. You'll make adjustments where you need to, and you've stated that security is very high in your mind, and we just want to share that with you as well. So.
One of your parties here has addressed the fact that they are very cognizant of security and preventative measures. And of course, you've heard the comments from the commission regarding that particular matter. You're just opening yourselves up for problems if you leave that wide open. And I'm sure your security officer understands that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments by commission members?
Yes.
Mr. Owens.
Well, it's actually a question. There's going to be security in the building that's also responsible for the outside parking, which means if the security is outside, there's no security in the building?
Identify for the record.
Jean Marie Walsh for NMB Services. Essentially, there could be both, depending on, what we feel is going on and what the problems lie. I'm from Reno. I don't know where the Wiener Schnitzel is. So I would have to go and really look a little bit better to see where I thought the problems may be. I would agree that, blocking off a portion of that parking lot may be a good idea, but it may not be, because I have not seen that particular location. Okay. So it would really be, on us to protect our patients and our customers to the best of our ability, and it would be in our best interest to, if we need somebody in front and in back, then that would be what would happen. But essentially, you have secured entrance that, you have a security door that they have to be buzzed in through and then check the IDs and everything. So the facility itself is operated in an extremely secure fashion that may not necessarily need a human person in a uniform to kind of complete that security program.
Thank you very much, ma'am. If I could just, sir, if I could have you step forward to the podium again. I'd just like to have you address the issue of what did you have in mind for signage? I realize that We're not going to have any at the present time, but what do you have in mind for the future?
Well, as with the former applicant, I mean, this actually goes to state regulation, by the way. Any proposed signage or advertising or whatever has to actually get cleared by the state as a first step in the whole process. So this is why when I say, even the DBA is to be determined, we're waiting for the state to provide those provisional licenses. We will then interact with the state, get their approval on a DBA, and that will not have the name, it won't say marijuana here. It won't say, Mile High Club. So the whole point of this is to be professional, to serve the needs of the community. It needs to be something at a dispensary level that is identifiable to people for whom this is medicine, that they can begin to associate with a place that they can go for what they need. But it is not intended to be at all overt or provoking to the public in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your feedback. Moving back to the commission for any further discussion or motion.
I will make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Eswin.
I move to approve SUP-14-082, a special use permit request from NNV Services 2, LLC, property owner Auburn Ravine Investors, LLC, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zoned general commercial located at 3359 Highway 50 East, APN 008-302-02, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Now, before we proceed any further, I believe I missed asking you a question. Mr. Johnson, you listened to the testimony of Ms. Pansky.
Yes.
And you're very well aware of the special conditions that are attached to this application.
Yes, we are.
Are you in total agreement with these conditions?
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely.
Now I'm prepared for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Eswin for approval, seconded by Mr. Sadler. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
For the record, motion carried.
I would like to say nay when you ask that question.
Okay, excuse me. Okay. Okay, those who are in favor, raise their hand.
Aye.
Okay, you have 4 in approval, and now for any of those for nay? 2. Okay, thank you. Motion carried. Your application's been approved. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. F-5 SUP-14-083 for possible action to consider request from NNV Services 2, LLC, property owner Fast Foodies, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zone general commercial located at 211 West Appian Way, APN 009-268-02. Ms. Pansky.
Thank you. And just to clarify, this applicant, while the parties are the same, they are actually NNV Services 3 versus the other one that was NNV Services 2. So just a clarification for the record.
So an F5 is Special Services 3.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a special use permit request for medical marijuana dispensary located on Appian Way, which essentially has frontage on South Carson Street. This is an aerial that shows the location of the property. And you can see it's bounded by Cochise Street on the west, Appian on the north, and Carson Street on the east. Just a couple of photos of the property, and this is a vacant property, so the applicant is proposing a new facility to be constructed in this location. Another photo of the property looking to the north, and then one more looking back towards Carson Street. The reason why I have this slide first is because this dispensary is located on a street that has residential property within 300 feet. So the requirement in the development standards is that the dispensary's front door must be outside of that 300-foot radius. So this exhibit is intended to demonstrate the edge of the zoning district, the residential zoning district, and just so that you can kind of understand where that is. The residential zoning district basically runs along this line here. So while there are residences on properties in this location adjacent to Cochise, they are residential property within the retail commercial zoning district, so that would not apply. So you're looking at basically the line from the residential zone starts just to the west of those properties immediately adjacent to Cochise. Basically what this shows is that the 300-foot does extend into the property, however, it does not extend across the entire property. The applicant has provided a couple of exhibits intended to demonstrate that the front door is outside of the 300 feet. However, staff has recommended an additional condition of approval that a survey be performed that shows exactly the distance between that residential zoning district and the front door, because the way that the applicant has presented it to us is that we have this exhibit here that does not show the building on the exhibit, and then we have an exhibit that shows the building on the property, and then a line that represents that 300-foot distance. So just to kind of marry those two together, we would like to see a survey that actually shows that as a part of their approval, and so we've recommended a condition as such. So just to kind of talk about the dispensary a little bit, they're proposing this dispensary in a new 2,026 square foot building. It will again sell medical marijuana infused products, and medical marijuana paraphernalia. This location is also anticipated to serve approximately 30 to 70 people per day, with a peak demand of 150 people per day. The dispensary will include, as the other one did as well, an entryway, waiting room, retail space, security office, library, restrooms, counseling room, office, and vault. And the applicant does intend to construct a facility that meets the requirements of our ordinance and also the state regulations in the manner of being a professional, orderly, and dignified facility in the tradition of pharmacies and medical offices. So this is the floor plan. Here's the secure entrance at the Sally Port. This is located at the west side of the building. You would enter then the waiting area here, and then from the waiting area, once you were released to go to the retail area, you would then go through this door and then enter the retail area in this location. Just to quickly, before I go through the requirements for the development standards, I'll just show you what the elevations are that are proposed by the applicant. These are the east and west elevations, and then the north and south elevations. And this is a relatively inconspicuous building. Muted colors are proposed. Not a lot of articulation, so in keeping with the design standards that are set forth in Carson City's development standards for building design, staff has recommended that there is building articulation on all four sides of the building, and then we would review that at the design level. And that condition of approval is in your staff report. So as far as meeting the development standards specifically, again, staff has recommended a condition that this medical marijuana establishment permit is only for this location and only valid for this operator. No consumption of medical marijuana products shall occur on the premises, which is not proposed by the applicant, but we have a condition of approval regardless. All business activities shall be conducted inside with a permanent building, and that it should maintain an orderly, professional, and dignified exterior appearance and interior appearance as well. I believe the applicant has demonstrated that that will be the case with their proposed elevations. Outside display or sales is prohibited. Again, it's not proposed, but we have recommended a condition of approval, and the floor plan, again, we believe, shows that the retail space is really not in an area that would have a lot of visibility from the exterior. Outside storage is not proposed. Access shall be restricted in compliance with state regulations. We have a condition of approval for that. No products visible from outside the building, again, not proposed, and we have a condition of approval. Signage is not proposed at this time, but we again have a condition of approval to address that. For parking, and I'll go back to the site plan quickly. Based on the size of the building at 2,026 square feet, 7 spaces would be required. In this location, the applicant is proposing 16 spaces. 11 of them, including the handicap, would be located to the west side of the building, and then an additional 5 on the east side of the building. No more than 2 dispensaries shall be permitted in Carson City. Should this applicant obtain a provisional certificate, they would, from the state, they would become one of those 2 dispensaries. If they do not, their special use permit is null and void, and they will not be one of the 2 dispensaries. Staff has verified that this location is not within 1,000 feet of a school or 300 feet of a community facility. And again, I already addressed the issue related to the residentially zoned property within 300 feet. Single secure point of entry is provided, and again, that would be this Sallyport location here. Hours of operation shall be limited to 7 to 8, and again, as with their other location, the applicant's proposing hours of operation at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Drive-through service is not provided or proposed at this location. And then finally, the last 2, the proposed dispensaries located where sufficient, convenient, and safe access is provided. This will be a new building. It does have sufficient and convenient and safe access through existing roads and sidewalks, and I would note that sidewalk is not existent today along the exterior of this property, but will be required as a part of their new site design. And that's standard construction requirements through Public Works with a new building. They would also be required to provide site lighting as a part of their new building construction. So they'll meet the lighting and access requirements as well. Staff has received, we are recommending approval. We have received 1 letter related to this application. It consists actually of quite a few questions and then a statement that the dispensary will negatively affect property values in the area. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have before we turn it back over to the applicant again.
Okay, Mr. Sadler?
Can you clarify for me a little? I was confused when we drew this up too. The 300 feet, so it's from the front door and they're at the west side, so they're at the back of the building from Highway 50, or 395. So is that 300 feet from that entrance to a home, or?
So it's 300 feet from the front door. So in this exhibit, my guess is that, and I believe that the front door is outside of the 300 feet based on the information I have, but the reason why I'm requiring additional information is just to have something that clarifies it on one exhibit. But based on what the applicants provided, I believe the front door to be right about here in this location. So it needs to be outside of this 300-foot circle from the edge of the nearest residential property on the same street. And so the nearest residentially zoned property starts at this line and goes to the west. So their front door is here, and then and the 300 feet is this blue
And the
circle.
building is 64 feet long, so if that were an issue, they could almost flop it and probably, then it would become the front of the building, or the
Yeah.
other side of the building.
Yes, they could actually. The nice thing about this particular site and the fact that it's vacant is that they do have the ability to move their design if there's an issue with the 300 feet.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Yep.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, any other question, Ms. Pansky? Okay, if we could have the applicant come forward, please identify yourself for the record.
Shane Johnson for NNV Services 3.
Shane, what is your last name?
Johnson.
Johnson. That's an easy name to remember. Go ahead, sir.
I have, no further comments really over the comments made previously. Obviously, this is a new location. Actually, I can comment, for both of these properties, we are purchasing the property if we move forward, if we get the provisional application, so.
Now, you listened, of course, you heard the statement provided by Ms. Pansky.
Yes.
And you heard her presentation of the conditions of approval.
Correct.
And you're familiar with those.
Yes.
And specifically the one at the entrance, and you're
Absolutely.
really close to.
We feel very comfortable with that. We've measured it to our satisfaction, but we will be sure to provide assurances to all of you as well.
All right, sir, and you approve of the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any questions? Mr. Castro?
Did anyone from your organization attempt to approach the resident in question?
I did not, sir. I'd be happy to speak with, anyone. Certainly the security concerns, all that are very easy to address. Property value, somewhat subjective at times, depending. There's the objective measure, the subjective measure. All I can say is out in Colorado right now, property values as a whole are skyrocketing.
I'm not asking about property values.
Okay.
I was just wondering if anybody
Yeah.
from your organization
Sorry, sir.
approached the residential
Sorry, sir, no, I have
address in question.
I've not.
And for public relations purposes, might be a consideration, especially with a young lady right there that's involved with public relations, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good neighbor policy. Okay, any other questions of the applicant by the commission? All right, let's invite.
I do have
Okay, Mr. Esselman has a question. Would you?
You may have pointed this out, but what is your security situation here going to be? Are you going to have an on-site security?
Same as the other
Be the
location.
same as the
Yeah,
other one?
during the hours of operation, we intend to have an on-site security person at all times.
I just missed that.
We will periodically reassess that and see, what's happening. If we don't need it, I'd rather be able to offer medicine to patients who are already having to pay full freight at a lower price, so.
Now, in addition to the on-site security officer, will there be security cameras?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
But that is mandated by state law, by the way, and
All right.
the state law actually requires off-site accessibility to those feeds. You also have to store the video recordings for a minimum of 30 days according to the state. We, and I'm sure other applicants, are planning on storing that data for at least 45 to 60 days, so exceeding the state limits.
Okay, thank you.
And are you going to be taking the same approach on the signage for this building
Yes, absolutely.
as previously disclosed by you?
Correct.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, we'll open it up to the public to come forward and offer an opportunity to provide any testimony regarding this application. There doesn't appear to be any indication that anyone from the public wants to address this issue. We'll bring it back to the commission for any further discussion or comments at this point in time. All right, Mr. Steele, you're prepared to make a motion.
I move to approve SUP-14-083, a special use permit request from NNV Services 3, LLC, property owner Fast Foodies, LLC, to allow a medical marijuana dispensary on property zone general commercial located at 211 West Appian Way, APN 009-268-02, based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
We have a motion made by Mr. Steele. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Sadler. All those that are in favor, please raise their right hand. We have a total of 4. Are there any nays? and we have two. The twos are Mr. Castro and Mr. Owens. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think it's necessary to address that appeal item again.
Sure, I'll note it for the record. Thank you. Any persons participating that have commented on or participated in this matter have the right to appeal this matter. This is the final decision unless this approval is appealed within 10 days.
Thank you, Mr. Plemmel. Which takes us next item on the agenda, which are staff reports. Mr. Plemmel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go quick tonight. Just to let you know that World Series still remains in the balance. We will be able to get home before the end of the game. And just real quick on a report, the Herman Bauer special use permit for the multifamily apartments went to the board and was up. The Planning Commission decision of approval on that was upheld at the Board of Supervisors in October. For the November meeting, it's a master plan cycle. We'll bring the master plan annual report to you, as well as a master plan amendment and zoning map amendment for state lands on Clear Creek Road. We also have a special use permit for an adult care facility and a special use permit for the Carson Nugget, changing and adding some signage. Kind of a refresh of signage. And just a note on that next meeting for your calendars, note that it is on a special, because of the Thanksgiving holiday, it's on a special date. It's on Tuesday, November 18th. Tuesday, November 18th, so make sure you got that on your calendar, and should be the regular time, 5 o'clock on that day. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Plemmel. Any commission members have anything you want to see on a future agenda or anything you want to discuss at this time? No, that'll be noted. There's no indication as such. I'd like to address the public again. We do have one gentleman here representing the media, but who is also representing the public. He may like to make a comment. As indicated, no, you're not a gentleman. We believe you are. I'd just like to have it noted for the record that there's no indication that any member of the public would like to make any comments at this time. I'm ready for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Motion made by Mr. Sadler for adjournment, seconded by Mr. Eswin. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That wasn't too bad.